Okay, students. Right, now you're looking at this one. A Nocturnal upon St. Lucy's Day being the shortest day by Donne. I'll tell you right now, I think this is the hardest and this most we don't say hard anymore, do we? We say challenging, like it's something we need to conquer. The most challenging of poems. Do you know what? I will have a slight aside, even though we're just starting here. The new courses that they brought out that you're doing, like linear A levels and things like that. You can thank the politicians for this. We had a big discussion, politically, the big discussions about this, like, should we make the exams harder because students are doing better? And they decided that they would make the exams harder, but we wouldn't use the word harder. So Gove said that, it's not that the new linear A levels are harder, but they are more challenging. So look those up in the thesaurus and see which ones are synonyms, why don't you? But anyway, I digress. A Nocturnal upon St. Lucy's Day being the shortest day. So it is a sort of nighty-timey type of poem about St. Lucy's Day, which is the shortest day, like the winter equinoxy type of thing, right? And it's a really big philosophical exploration of the idea of nothingness. It's another poem about grief. It's a poem about loss and death. It's about the dying of the whole universe. It's about how I'm even more dead than dead. Actually, this might sound a bit silly, but there's a really, really big philosophical tradition of exploring, well, what do we mean by nothing? What is nothing? How can you give me an example of nothing? There's a book by Lawrence Krauss. As you know, I teach literature, but I love philosophy as well, and science. There's a really important book called A Universe from Nothing by Lawrence Krauss, which, if you want to have a look at that, is a really good exploration of what we've meant by the word nothing in different points in history, and things like that, and how we can have a universe from nothing. What do we mean by nothing? But this is a poem that really explores that idea. What do we mean by nothing? There's some astrology in there as well, and there's lots and lots of imagery, really, really deep, important imagery, sort of very deathly sort of imagery, okay? Right, so I'll tell you right now, I don't get all of it, right? I do not get all of this poem, okay? There's some stuff in there where I think I can give an idea of the type of thing that Donne is up to, but I'd have to go, I don't quite know what that means. But there's tons that we can talk about it, and I think if you are up for a challenge, using this one is a really, really good way to say I'm in control of some quite complicated material here. Right, so right from the start, don't start off, don't peak too soon, Donne, but like, it is the year's midnight. Goodness me. Lovely little metaphor from the start. It's the year's midnight. So if a day has a midnight, a year has a midnight. So would that make it a macrocosm? Possibly. I don't think so. Maybe. It's certainly a metaphor of types, isn't it? It is the year midnight, and it is the days. So it's the middle of the night of the year, the equinox, and it's the days, it's the middle of the night. So it's the night within the night. Okay? The day is Lucy's, who scarce 7 hours herself unmasks. The sun is spent, so scarce 7 hours, like how right now, actually, the days are so short, it feels dark. And we feel sort of depressed and all the rest of it. The sun is spent, and now his flasks send forth light squibs, no constant rays. So I think a squib's a type of firework, like a damp squib. But sort of a little squib, like a sort of an inconsequential amount of light, no constant rays. So the sun is spent. So right from the start, we have this image of sort of death. We have this image of powerlessness. The whole world's sap is sunk. So, little sibilant there, but essentially whole world sap is sunk. This idea that in some way the day is coming to an end, the year is coming to an end, and the world's power is diminishing in some way. So it's an image of a lack of power. The general balm the hydroptic earth hath drunk. So this idea, almost like a sleeping potion that that's been taken by the world. Whither, as to the bed's feet, life is shrunk, dead, and interred. So it's almost like the universe has been buried, really. Yet all these seem to laugh. Look, let's start that. Okay, so up until here we've got 90, 90, 90, 90, no constant rays. The universe is all dark. It's like you're drunk, something to send you to sleep. It's like the world's in bed and it's dead and it's been buried. Right, that's quite dark imagery, isn't it? Right from the start. But then we've got this lovely little semicolon then. Yet all these seem to laugh compared with me, who am their epitaph. So It's this idea that we get right the way throughout the poem, so which is like nature's dead, nature's dying, the earth's coming to an end, but I'm that like 2.0. I'm that plus. Yeah? If there was like goth squared, that's what I'd be. So it's, again, another poem which is not ironic in the slightest, very, very poignant and really hyperbolic in tone. This is about grief and loss. So compared with me, I'm their epitaph, like I'm the condensed version. If the world was in the grave, I'd be the gravestone. It's that like level of depression, right? Okay, study me then, you lovers who shall be at the next world, that is, at the next spring, for I am every dead thing. Look at the straightforwardness in the language, monosyllabic, low register, I'd say almost conversational, direct. At the next world, that is at the next spring, for I am every dead thing in whom love wrought new alchemy. So I'm everything that was born of love or experiences love and then died. I am loss, sort of personified in a way. A quintessence even from nothingness, from dull privations and lean emptiness. He ruined me, and I am rebegot of absence, darkness, death, things which are not. This is a huge philosophical exploration of the idea of nothingness. I'll tell you right now, there's no way to make this make sense. It's a paradox. I mean, I think philosophically there's an idea of saying that, you know, nothingness is a contradiction anyway. You know, when people say stuff like, you know, something can't come from nothing, what you want to say is, what do you mean by nothing? Give me an example of that. Well, you can't, because then it would be something. So is this really amazing sort of idea of like loss of everything, nothingness. What is that? Look at it, a quintessence. So like I'm nothingness sort of condensed in a way. I'm made of privations, lack. I'm made from emptiness, lack of stuff. He ruined me, and I am rebegot of absence, darkness, death. So the he there is love. So anthropomorphized love has ruined me, and I am rebegot, I'm reborn of absence, darkness, and death. So it takes that sort of religious idea of being born again, of being rebegot, being reborn, and flips it and makes it, I'm reborn out of absence, nothingness, darkness, the opposite, lack of light, and death, the lack of life. I'm made of things which are not. Now, it cannot make sense logically. You can't be made of nothingness, because what is that? You can't be a quintessence of nothingness, but it feels like this. It feels like this because you feel like you're not just dead, but you're not just nothing after this grief. You're made of all of the negative things in the universe. So it's hugely, hugely hyperbolic. And if you want to do something simple with it, just do something, look at the semantic fields of lack or loss or nothingness. Nothingness, privation, emptiness, lean, ruined, absence, darkness, death. And he could have said reborn, but notice that he doesn't. Rebegot. Because born would have positive connotations, wouldn't it, of being living again? And what he's saying is, no, I'm death alive in some way. I'm made of absence, darkness, and death I'm made of things that are not. So, goodness me, it's strong, is what I'll say about it. Right, third stanza. All others from all things draw all that's good, life, soul, spirit, form. So this is philosophical tone here. There's a sense of making a declarative statement about the universe. Things draw all that's good, life, soul, form, spirit, whence they have being have. So there's an idea that being is positive, which again is a philosophical idea, that it's better to exist than to not, which is an idea in philosophy when you're discussing God's omnibenevolence, for example. But something that things draw all that's good, they have life, or they have soul, or they have spirit, or form, they have imbued with sort of Platonic ideals, or whatever. The statement is that everything has something good in its being. I, by Lums Limbach, am the grave of all that's nothing. So again, not just nothingness, but I'm like a grave of nothingness. So oft a flood have we two wept, and so drowned the whole world. Again, this hyperbolic tone, us two. Oft did we grow to be two chaoses, when we did show care to all else, and often absences withdrew our souls, and made us carcasses. There's an interesting sibilance in there. And a lot of what the poem does is it draws this connection between loss and absence and death, and carcass is like a sort of zoomorphized image of death. So like the carcass is what an animal has, withdrew our souls and made us carcasses. So the idea that I am the grave of all that's nothing, a flood have we too wept, and so drowned the whole world, us too. Oft did we grow, blah, 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 to be two chaoses when we show care to aught else, and often absences withdrew our souls and made us carcasses. So a lot of imagery of death, of chaos, of loss, and a real sense of grief. And that leads to what you could consider to be a slight vault, but I'm not sure about that because I think it's riffing on the same idea, which is I am by her death. It's just more explicit here. So this previous stanza referring perhaps to the type of relationship they had. And now I am by her death, which word wrongs her, of the first nothing, the elixir grown. Were I a man, that I were one I needs must know, I should prefer if I were any beast. Some ends, some means, yea plants, yea stones detest and love, all some properties invest. If I an ordinary nothing were, a shadow, a light, and body must be here. Again, I'm not going to make this easy. It isn't easy, but I think as a sort of an exploration of the darkness of depression and grief, you'd be hard pressed to find something more interesting than this. Let's think about it. Were I a man, indicating that I'm not, that I were one I needs must know, I should prefer if I were any beast. So possibly we can take that to mean that, similar to Othello, when he riffs on Desdemona's perceived infidelity, that I'd rather be a toad in the fume of a dungeon, is that the line, I think? That, in a sense, he is anguished to be a man and says, were I a man, implying that he's not one, I'm nothing, not really much of a beast. Some ends, some means, yea plants, yea stones, detest and love, all some properties invest. So there's an idea that everything's got properties or sort of features, if you like. Everything in there is something in everything. Everything's got existence. But I'm not even an ordinary nothing. If I an ordinary nothing were, a shadow, a light and body must be here, but I am none. So we move right from one stanza into the next. The claim is, if I was a conditional, if I was an ordinary nothing, a shadow, a light, a body must be here. So like if I'm a lack of this thing over here, there must be some presence, there must be a light or a body, but I'm none, nor will my sun renew. So this isn't death as a prelude to rebirth, this is ultimate death. This is complete loss, complete absence. So as a sort of expression of the completeness of grief and loss and nothingness, there's a real focus in this poem. It's very disturbing, I have to say. Nor will my sun renew, so my sun won't come again. You lovers, for whose sake the lesser sun at this time to the goat is run. The goat is a reference to astrology. So he's looking up St. Lucy's Day, it's dark, looking up the stars, and he's thinking about the movements of the planets and the heavens to fetch new lust and give it to you. Enjoy your summer all. Since she enjoys her long night's festival, let me prepare towards her. Now, it could be, I don't want you to take this as that his wife died and therefore he gets sad. Now, clearly that could be an interpretation of the poem, but the she here could be reference to Lucy, it could be reference to the lesser sun. There's lots and lots of ideas going on, but enjoy her long night's festival, let me prepare towards her, and let me call this hour her vigil and her eve, since this both the years and the days deep midnight is. So whatever it is, whether it's a person, whether it's the end of Lucy's Day, whether it's the fulfillment of the movement of the stars, it's the end. And that's the idea, this idea that sort of finality. Now, if you don't believe me, you don't think it's about finality, have a look at this. We finish with, since this, both the years and the days meet deep midnight is. So we end with a very, very short little rhyming, a very sort of compact little rhyming couplet, and we end with some repetition. Look at the start of the poem. Okay. 'Tis the year's midnight as it is the days. The year's midnight as it is the days. The years and the days deep midnight is. So we have the same idea, and that gives it this sense of cohesion and also this sense of finality. It sort of encapsulates the poem. So you're not going to do much more with this than to say this is a philosophical exploration of the idea of nothingness, the idea of loss, the idea of grief. There's some amazing dark imagery in there. There's some very complicated philosophical ideas in there. It's not particularly, in my view, clear or well thought out philosophically. There's more of a sort of an exploration of the feeling of nothingness rather than an idea of what nothingness is. It's full of contrast and paradox, and it is born out of this idea of the equinox, the shortest day, and the world seeming to die, and he's saying, I am that death, but there won't be a rebirth in some sort of way. It seems like everything's come to nothing. It's a lot to take in. He's a very changeable guy, that John Donne, isn't he, really? I quite like it. I have to say I quite like it. Let me prepare towards her, and let me call this hour her vigil and her eve, since this both the years and the days deep midnight is. Now you could actually see a tiny little bit of hope coming through there. I mean, possibly not, but there's a tiny little bit of, preparation for death. It's certainly not undignified. I would not suggest that. This is somebody whinging or moaning or complaining in that sense of grief. This is a sense of finality. This is a sense of, the world is over, and thank goodness for that, Right, okay, think about it. It's an interesting one. But don't get too depressed, because it's not necessarily all that bad, is it?